Welcome back to Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and today we are diving into a story, transformation, resilience, and breaking free from the destructive habits. So, I hope that you were able to go outside and get some grilling time in with your headphones, or maybe you're mowing the lawn with some headphones in, or maybe you're changing dirty diapers with your headphones in, or maybe just maybe you're sitting down, kicking back, relaxing, and finally listening to your favorite podcast. So, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, thanks for listening. And again, this today, story of transformation, resilience, and breaking free from destructive habits. If you've ever felt stuck in cycles of addiction, chasing the next quick fix, or struggling to create real change in your life, well, buckle up, bucko. This episode's going to be for you. Joining me today is John, an author, ultra marathon runner, personal trainer, mental health coach who completely transformed his life after an experience with psilocybin, which is, you know, something I've always been interested in. You guys have heard many talks about psychedelics, psilocybin, and others on the podcast, so it's a topic I always enjoy talking about. Which opened his eyes to the potential he was wasting. Once caught up in drinking, gambling, and cheap dopamine hits, John now dedicates his life to helping others break free from limiting mindsets and embrace true personal growth. We're going to talk about his book a little bit more than likely today. Your Mindset is Your Reality, his journey out of self destruction, and how fathers, leaders, and everyday people can apply these principles to live with purpose, discipline, and clarity. So, John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
Of course, man. I'm really excited to have you. And your story is wild. Going from drinking, gambling, mixing some psilocybin in there to now ultra marathons and coaching. What the heck took you? Take us through the story. Take us back to the moment that sparked your transformation to where you were in the midst of addiction and you were just like, you know what, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, man. It's a long story, but I'll try to consolidate it down as quickly as possible for your listeners. So, me, like a lot of people in their knees in the United States, I had a predisposed drinking problem that kind of started in high school, grew through college, through fraternity life, and never hit the brakes. When COVID hit, I got laid off from my job, which left me with an ample amount of time to do nothing except for drink and play video games and do lines of coke in between all of that. And so, that continued from, actually a couple years before that when I got fired from a previous job for something that I thought wasn't my fault at the time. And, it was just drinking, doing coke, chasing women. And that was the only thing that I had on my mind for years and years and years. Was living in New Jersey for my whole life, moved to Connecticut during COVID, and then eventually realized that I needed to make a change and move to Florida. It all continued throughout all that time, whether I was in New Jersey, in Connecticut, where I literally had no social connections. So my only thing was drinking, doing coke, and trying to find someone to meet up with off a dating app or anything like that. Moved to Florida, that still continued for about 6 months. And, throughout all that time, I was going through about an 8 ball a week of cocaine. I was drinking multiple times a week, blacking out regularly. And, it really felt inescapable. It felt like something that I had no control over and that it was just a part of life. It was just who I was. Like all I wanted to do was have fun. And my definition of fun was, the things that I laid out before: drinking, doing coke, gambling, going to strip clubs, yada, yada, yada. And then I started to prepare to go to this festival called EDC. There's two of them each year, one in Vegas and one in Orlando, and I'm here in Florida. So my friends and I were planning on going to the one in Orlando. I tried mushrooms one time when I was 18, had what I'd considered a terrible experience at the time, and kind of swore them off. But I had tried LSD a number of times throughout my late teens and 20s. I had heard really good things about psilocybin, so I was open to give it another shot. Heard that they were great for festivals, so I bought some in preparation for EDC. Started to try them to make sure that I could be comfortable in that mindset prior to exposing myself to being in a crowd of 200,000 people on a drug that I wasn't familiar with. And so I started to experiment, starting with a half-gram dose and then kind of working my way up on a couple different sessions before the festival. When I tried it in adulthood, it was like the key to my whole mind started to unlock. And I could finally feel emotion for the first time. I was finally put in touch with the people around me and just this understanding that I'm not as important as I thought I was. And what that allowed me to do was understand how my habits were affecting myself, how they were affecting those people around me, and kind of work backwards from, okay, this is why I've been caught up in this cycle of self-destruction. These are the things that are leading me towards making these decisions that are constantly putting myself in harm's way, constantly putting myself in situations that aren't the best for me, and then gave me the ability to choose how I wanted to proceed with my life. And as soon as I was given that clarity of, "Hey, this is what I've been doing, this isn't how I want to live life," I was able to make those decisions for myself to just set myself on a right path and completely change how I lived.
Wow. And so it sounds like it happened by accident then with the psilocybin. That's not what you were after to start.
Yeah, yeah, completely by accident, which is the most beautiful part because, there's so much out there in terms of how this can help people from mental health standpoint. There's clinical trials, there's, people using them intentionally for anxiety, depression, PTSD, alcoholism, addiction, dementia, so on and so forth. But I wasn't really aware of that at the time. It was something that I did it, and then 2 weeks later, I'm just kind of living life in a different way. I'm not impulsively grabbing a drink every time I go out to eat. I'm not, doing a line in the middle of the workday. I'm not, on dating apps until I fall asleep at night. And I saw a post on Instagram that said, single dose, new study finds that one dose of psilocybin cured depression in 90% of participants. And I'm like, holy shit, that's what happened. And it was just this aha moment where it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize that I had been depressed my whole life. And now I'm given this new lease on life and I can see things from a different perspective. And it was just such a beautiful moment to have that big aha, oh my God, I'm fixed. I have a new life to live.
So cool. So how many doses had you done with for yourself?
At that point, when I had that aha moment, it had
Mhm.
only been two, 1/2 gram dose, which is just a little bit more than a microdose, and then 1 gram dose, which is, what I consider like a standard dose, something that you can do and still be present, still interact with people, not have a risk of tripping or anything like that. It just kind of like increases mood, makes colors brighter, stuff like that. But, through that 1 gram dose, I just had this moment where I was like, oh my God, why am I anxious? Why am I constantly worried about the future? Why am I not happy with my life when my life is objectively excellent? I lived in a beautiful city. I had great friends. I had a great job. Was somebody who, despite all of the destructive habits I did, still took care of my health, went to the gym regularly and stuff like that. And it was just, oh my God, I don't have all of this stuff to be worried about that I've been worried about my whole life. And then a few days after that was that aha moment where I saw that post.
That's crazy. Honestly, I love talking about drugs because I've never done drugs. The only drug I've ever
Mm,
done was like marijuana when I was like a teenager, and I did like I think I did it twice, and I puffed just a couple times, and I was like coughing and like dying, and I'm like, I'm not this kind of thing. Uh, but other than that, I haven't done any drugs. So I'm always really fascinated by drugs because I love hearing about them, and I love like just getting into them and all the things, right? And so fun. So
hmm.
with the addictions and, getting caught up in everything. So it was drinking, gambling, women, and just pretty much a short-term pleasure, right? And then along comes the psilocybin. You take it, you do a couple doses, and then just things really start to change. But during it and while you were, like, looking back and unwinding, how did you see yourself functioning? Like, how did you function through all that?
Yeah, well, so I mean, really the biggest thing was that I didn't think that I had a problem. I just thought that I was a normal dude living life, which in a lot of respects I was, right? I mean, drinking, cocaine use is very prevalent amongst United States adults. And, all my friends were along for the ride with me. It wasn't something that I thought I was really an outlier. But when I tried psilocybin, was given the clarity to look at myself, and really the biggest thing that psilocybin does is a couple of things. One, it slows down the part of the brain that's associated with your sense of self, right? So like all the stories that you tell yourself about who you are, why you operate the way you do, but it also speeds up the part of the brain associated with empathy. So showing yourself the effect that you have on other people and the way that you're interacting with the world in a large sense. And so when I was given that clarity, it just showed me, okay, wait a second. When I'm drinking, I'm this destructive person who doesn't care about other people's feelings, only does things in my own best interest, is constantly chasing dopamine hits and wasting money, putting myself in harm's way, just doing all these things that were not productive. And when I tried psilocybin, it allowed me to see all of those things and ask myself, what do I really want for myself? Do I really want to be this person that's drinking all the time, doing all these destructive things, and not being a good person? Or do I want to actively make choices to better myself and better the people around me through osmosis and through the things that I'm able to do to help myself, but also reflect on other people around me in a positive way? And so once I was given that choice, the choice was simple.
Definitely. Definitely. So what kind of, I guess, trying to think here, what kind of repairs did you have to go back and do?
So the biggest thing was emotion, right? I had not been able to feel emotion in any type of way or really understand my emotion. I was on SSRIs at the time. You know, a doctor had told me that I had anxiety, and I believed it because I had nothing else to believe, right? But I didn't exactly know what anxiety was. So, it didn't immediately strike me as, oh my God, this is what anxiety is. This is how I need to fix it. But as I continued with my psilocybin experimentation through the music festival and everything like that, I kind of put myself into unintentional exposure therapy with it, where I was placed in situations that previously would have made me extremely anxious. But now, given the state of mind that was potentiated by the psilocybin, I was able to think through the anxiety in a different way and choose how to act. So, for example, when I was at the concert, there was a pickpocket that tried to steal my phone, and I stopped him and then made my way out of that crowd and into the crowd at another stage. And as I'm sitting there at the other stage, my anxiety is just going off the rails. I am being touched by people, and I don't know what the touching is for. Are they trying to steal my property? Are they trying to come on to me? Are they just, being rude and like fighting through the crowd? And so, with all of those things coming up as why I'm being touched, I started to think, wait a second, if I can go through these and eliminate the things that are making me anxious, then I'm going to have no reason to be anxious, right? So, one, secure my possessions. So, I secured my possessions. Two, if someone is trying to come on to me, that's not the reason that I'm at the concert. I'm just at the concert to have a good time and dance and do my thing, right? I don't want to engage in that type of thing. That wasn't on my mind. So if I just stop moving, it'll show that person that I'm not trying to engage with them sexually, or I can stop and allow the person that's pushing through the crowd and being rude to just get out of my space. And if not, then I can approach it with a friendly demeanor rather than my typical just fucking elbow someone or, shove them out of my way type of thing. And then everybody will be happier and be healthier. And so, as I'm processing all of these things, I'm able to think through what my actions are rather than just responding in the same way that been predispositioned to respond my whole life.
Very interesting. So that was some of the biggest changes right there. Being able to unlock that part of yourself and, more or less slow down and evaluate what was going on.
Yep, that's the biggest thing, man. Around that same time, I'm going to say in part thanks to the mushrooms because they allowed me to just evaluate what I'm doing differently. I started taking up meditation. I started to take up breathing exercises to just slow myself down and actually be able to evaluate things. And all of that worked in conjunction to just allow me to pick a different path for how I reacted to the things that happened in my life at a large scale.
So picking a different path. And so this is a totally new path then for you. This is something that totally breaks the norms of however many years, caught in addiction. And, for anyone listening, definitely evaluate your SSRIs because SSRIs can definitely have some side effects that can lead to addiction. But definitely evaluate that. And if they work for you, great. Maybe they're not working for you as well as you think. But I have my own opinion on SSRIs. But that's neither here nor there. So as you're on this new path essentially, post the psilocybin, post so this is right after EDC then, or right around EDC that this is all starting, right?
Yeah, so it was about 3 weeks prior to EDC that I started my experimentation. And then, so I had done psilocybin 3 times leading up to EDC,
Okay.
and then 3 days at EDC, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was, kind of realization after realization after realization, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And by the time I hit Sunday, I'm like, oh my God, I have figured out what anxiety is. I don't need to take my anxiety medication anymore. I feel comfortable by myself alone in a crowd. I had given myself that exposure therapy. I am a competent person. I have so many things to be grateful for in my life. Now, what can I do to work towards helping other people realize the same things about themselves and help them live a better life? So it was just this complete transformation process over the span of about a month from the time that I first tried psilocybin until the end of EDC, where I just looked at myself and who I was prior to finding psilocybin and then who I was at the end of EDC and said, oh my God, I'm a completely different person and I'm going to live a completely different life than the one I've been living up to this point.
Oh, so you did it for all 3 days at EDC.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically did your EDC psilocybin retreat
Yep.
unintentionally, which is bonkers. Okay, so you come out of EDC a new person. Most people don't say that, when they come out of EDC. Quite the opposite normally when they come out of EDC. But so then after EDC, where does the book come in, and when did you start creating the book? Where did the book idea come from? What kind of mindset shift and what path were you on after EDC?
Yeah, so, there were a few things that happened after EDC. First things first, I got back and started to ask myself, what exactly happened to me? So like I said, I had heard some stuff about psilocybin prior to starting my experimentation, but hadn't really dived into exactly what the ins and outs of the mechanisms and how it affects people. So I started watching a lot of documentaries. I started, reading books and really pouring myself into understanding what went on. But then how I lived my daily life just changed completely. Like my apartment had been a complete mess. My closet was disorganized. I never made my bed. Things were just kind of strewn around my apartment. Things are
Don't worry
kind of
about
just
that.
strewn. Things are kind of just strewn around my apartment without having a specific place or anything like that. So I just started to get really organized and really detailed in my everyday life. So that was the first thing. The second thing that came along was I started to recognize the importance of other people in my life and how special other people in my life really are. And the biggest one of those was my brother. Now, my brother was 12, he's 12 years older than me. And when I was a freshman in college, my brother had been 6 months sober from crystal meth at that point. He had a pretty bad addiction, went to rehab, came back, was 6 months sober, and then the cartel attempted to kill him. So they ran him over on his motorcycle, yep, and dragged him under a car for 3/4 of a mile before taking out his body and dumping it between parked cars. He had skin removed from 60% of his body, all of the muscle on the right side scraped off, an exposed skull, fractured vertebrae, and was just a bloody fucking mess. And I
Oh
got
my
a
goodness.
call from my sister to go to the hospital, so we went to the hospital and saw him. But the whole time, I experienced no emotion during that. I still don't know if I just didn't care if he lived or died because he was, just not a great person to me, a great brother to me as I was growing up, or if I just didn't have the ability to feel emotion. But throughout that whole time, he had that accident. He recovered after a few months in the hospital and then more months at home bedridden. And then
He
eventually
survived that accident?
he survived.
Whoa!
Insane. Absolutely insane. It was a miracle. And, we've always asked, like, what's the reason for him to still be alive? Because there has to
Mhm.
be, there has to be a bigger plan for him.
Absolutely.
And part of me thinks that, that bigger plan was just giving me the ability to recognize the wonderful person that my brother is. And, after the accident, he got addicted to painkillers and then eventually heroin, had to go to rehab again, came back and has stayed clean, has built a family, has built a business. And, prior to my move to Florida, he finally repaid me for stealing my wallet about 15 years prior. And so, when he repaid me for that, it was a very nice experience for me and my brother, but it didn't really click until I found psilocybin. And then I started to recognize that, wait a second, my brother isn't the bad person that I've made him out to be my whole life. He isn't this degenerate. He's changed his life. He's a better person. And after EDC, there was one night when I was sitting in the hot tub at my apartment complex and I was just reflecting on my brother and the relationship that we had and the person that he's become. And I said, holy shit, my brother is an incredible story of resilience and strength and power. And he is truly someone that inspires people on a daily basis. And it was just this realization of, oh my God, I have a new relationship with my brother. And so it was after realizing that I said, okay, wait a second. If psilocybin can not only help me get clean, help me live a better life, a more efficient life, a more directed life, but can also repair the relationship with my loved ones and most specifically my brother, there's something extremely special here that people need to hear about. So I started writing my book the day after he and I had a conversation where I essentially just told him all those realizations that I had. So I started writing my book the next day, and it wasn't a quick process. It took me over 20 months to finish writing it. But when given that clarity and given that oh my God moment where you just realize how special an experience like that is, you just feel the need to share it with people.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's crazy. Just near death experience with the cartel to rehab again to getting clean, and then you go through your experience right after that, and how it all just comes full circle. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Really,
man.
really cool.
And the big thing is that, like, what he experienced is something that, obviously is not normal, but it's closer to normal than what I experienced, especially at the time when the information on psilocybin wasn't really out there in the zeitgeist. And I said, if more people can have the type of experience that I had, then have the type of experience that he had, then the world's going to be a lot healthier, happier place.
Yeah. No, I've always thought that too with psilocybin and with some of these psychedelic drugs, right? That and I think it's something my dad and I've talked about before too. It's like if everyone just did like a little bit of mushrooms and had like one good experience with like psilocybin or what's that shit that Aaron Rodgers does in the forest?
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. Thank you. And I love how you just knew exactly what I was referring to. But if everyone
Big
just had
Aaron
like
Rodgers fan. We have the same birthday.
oh, very cool. Very cool. And just thinking about that, it's like, man, it's if everyone just had that experience, right? How much better would society be? And then you think about it and you look at it and you're like, why are these things all banned and forbidden? And then you hear people like you talk, and it's like, well, this is why. Because then we would all be like John. We would all like have different parts of our brain unlocked. We'd all feel so much better all the time about ourselves, and we would all have all these things open to us. Our society would be kinder, and we probably wouldn't need government, overlording and all these things. And society may actually run smooth and freely and openly, and we may be actually very productive and blissful and just all the things just booming all the time if we all had this kind of thing. And the streets would be clean. We wouldn't have, you know, we still would have problems, of course, right? It's not all a perfect utopia, but I feel like we'd be pretty damn close if everyone just had like a little bit of an experience with it. Just a little bit, like yours. Maybe not like a 3-week experience plus a 3-day at EDC kind of experience. Maybe that's not needed for everybody, but if everyone just had just one experience with these I don't even want to call them drugs, but with these I don't even want to say substances because that just sounds bad too. But with psilocybin,
They're gifts from God, man. There's something really special that was placed here for us to be able to find and be able to really understand ourselves in the most complete way. And it's a beautiful thing that they are here on this planet, and that regardless of legality, there is an opportunity for people to experience the type of thing that I and so many others have experienced, and it's really special.
yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Like so many people when they have these experiences or interactions with psilocybin or ayahuasca or any other product or any other thing very similar, is that they have a very renewed like spiritual or religious like take, right? Like
Mhm.
they feel very much closer to some kind of creator, to God specifically, And it just makes you wonder. It has to make just the average person. It makes me wonder. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm not the average person on this matter. But it's like, man, just what if? What if, man? Just the what if there is just
Yep.
crazy because it can make such a huge difference. You see it in vet studies that have gone through and happened, right? Like
Hmm.
these vets, they're cured from their PTSD and they're able to live a normal life versus being homeless and begging for money on the corner, right? Because our system sucks. We don't take care of vets, but we spend bajillions of dollars in US aid on other tons of other stuff, which is just it's bonkers. But no, if we spent, man, I think about it a lot. I just think about it a lot. Like, man, what if we all were able to do part of that? Just one experience. Everyone has to have one experience with this when they turn, 25. Make sure your brain's fully developed. When you turn 25, sometime between 25 and 26 in that year, you have to go and do this thing. It's a required thing. You go and do it, and just the society that we would have, man, the society that we'd have. But
One day.
I really hope so. I really hope so. The benefits far outweigh the risks and the cons. I mean, for you, as an example here, you went from self-destructive habits per se to running 46-mile ultra marathons. What the hell was that about? How did you transition from well, I know how. The psilocybin had a big impact there, but you went from self-destructive habits to 46-mile ultramarathon. How have your journey about or what has been your journey about discipline and just mental toughness in that huge, big transition there?
Yeah, man. So one thing that you touched on is kind of the spirituality aspect, and I haven't really touched on that. But that final day at EDC, I had this moment where I really felt like I connected with God, and I got a message, and the message was help people. Help people with this. And so that was one of the messages that kind of continued to ring to me as I started writing my book and in the year that followed. About all of 2023, I was in this transition period where I was leaving my old life. I wasn't hanging out with the same friends anymore because they all still wanted to drink and go out. And that just wasn't my scene anymore. And so I had this like big question of like, okay, where is my life going from here? And at the end of 2023, I had an opportunity to do a Spartan race, and that was something that I had wanted to do for a long time. I tried to organize friends at different points in my life to go and do that, and was trying to do that again at the end of 2023. But about 2.5 weeks prior to the race, I realized that my friends weren't going to do it with me, and I was like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I've been in this mode of doing things for myself. Let's do this for myself. So I signed up for a half marathon Spartan despite having not run in over 10 years. I was like, you know what? I'm in decent shape. I bike a decent amount. If there's people out there that are running half marathons, there's no reason that I can't do this. And so I signed up for the half marathon with 2.5 weeks to prepare. Ran a little bit prior to that, getting up to like 7 miles the week before, but was nowhere near in, the type of shape that I'm in now. But I went out, I did that. I finished in the top 5% of the open division and was like, oh my God, I'm so much stronger than I'm giving myself credit for. What would happen if I really sank my teeth into this? And so I started to, just really go after the physical aspect. I quit drinking around the same time. I started to find different races to challenge myself and just put myself out there. I a year ago today, actually, I made the decision to quit my full-time job and go into personal training and coaching around psychedelics. And so with all of that, I said, okay, this is the path that I want for myself. This is how I'm going to show up the best for the people in my life and be able to make an immediate impact for people through not only training, but also inspiring people to push their limits and see how much they got. And so I started doing a whole bunch of different races. I did, that half marathon Spartan. I did a 10K Spartan in February of last year. And I did a Spartan Stadium, which was held at Raymond James Stadium where the Bucks play here in Tampa. I also did a triathlon, despite having no idea how to swim, basically. So I, just show up and see what happens kind of thing. But made it through. As time started to push on, I'm still training, I'm still doing my thing, and I'm running, but not really to the tune of 46 miles. But one Tuesday afternoon in late August, I get a call from one of my friends who had done the triathlon with me and was also into, you know, doing races. And he goes, "Hey, man, I signed up for this race on Saturday. You want to do it with me?" And I'm like, "What kind of race?" And he's like, "It's a 46-mile ultra marathon." And I'm like, "You're doing it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "All right, fuck it, I'm in." So we signed up on Tuesday for a race on Saturday with basically no preparation and said, "Okay, we got one mission, make it to the end." So, showed up on race day, a whole bunch of questions about, how my body would hold up and what the experience would be like. Man, after 30 miles, I wanted to quit so badly. My body was in so much pain. I had shooting pain all through my legs and calves and cramping all over the place. But I just kept the legs moving, kept the legs moving, kept the legs moving. And after 11 hours and 50 minutes, made it to that fucking finish line. And, there's just so much to be said about strength that we don't know that we have and things that we doubt for ourselves, but having the courage to just go for something that seems out of reach and see what happens. And man, when I crossed that finish line, to be able to say that I completed something of that magnitude, it still blows my mind, especially having done a marathon this past weekend and seeing how much pain I was in just after 26 miles. To imagine that I did another 20 on top of that just 4 months ago is something that still blows my own mind.
Yeah, man, that's well, I like hearing you talk about doing all these things. And the last time I did something to even a fraction of the same magnitude was back in college. My college used to do like try a try
Okay.
kind of thing, where it's just like a very mini triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it. I'm like, sure, good. I can bike, I can swim, can't run, but if I can crush at the biking, I can crush at the swimming, I can make up any ground I lose in, or I'll be out ahead. So I ended up finishing first in my heat
Congrats, dude.
for that. That was many years ago. Many years ago. Could I still do that? Probably not. It would take some time. But it's just again, it was one of those things where it's like I think about this stuff all the time. It's like, man, what if? Like a lot of us live in this, what if, right? What if I just, went and did that thing, right? Or what if I
Mm-hmm.
just, said F it and did the thing, right? I went in and I did sign up for that tournament at the gym for pickleball because,
Mm-hmm.
I just like pickleball and I just want to play. I'm not good, but I just want to sign up and do it, no matter the results. Because I feel like a lot of people get caught right there, right? They get caught in the, well, I'm not really the best at it, or I'm not really in shape enough, or I'm not really this, or I'm not really that, I'm not really this, I'm not really that. So I'm not gonna do the thing. But then you're over here saying, well, you're doing it, so fuck it, yeah, I'll do it. I've never done it, anything like that, but sure. Probably didn't know exactly what you were signing up for or how it was gonna feel. Like 46 miles can't be that bad. I've done worse things. I mean, I've done a 3-day trip on psilocybin at EDC, so I mean, there's nothing worse.
Nothing better.
Exactly. Right, it's like there can't be anything else I can't do really, but no, that mindset's so important. Like you're saying, those strengths that we don't know that we have, or being able to overcome in those moments of like excruciating pain, weakness, and just be able to push through, that resilience that is really deep down in us. Having coaches said, dig deep, kind of thing. Like I had to dig
Yep.
deep a lot playing sports because you just run out of gas at some point. And when you're able to dig, you're able to find that. Man, it feels really good when you get to the end
Yeah,
and
man.
you push through.
And something that you touched on there is really the biggest thing, is that limiting beliefs are what keep us from doing things that we really want to do, and my limiting belief for the longest time was that, oh, I didn't want to do a Spartan race without my friends, right? I don't want to go into this without having a support system, right? I don't want to go to EDC and, the first day I hung out with my friends there, but day 2 and 3, I went off on my own. And that was because I kind of felt that, hanging out with my friends would restrict what I wanted to do on the day too much. And so just putting myself in the situation where it's like, okay, I'm off on my own, see what happens. It kind of predispositions your mind for taking on those challenges that you might think are out of reach, whether that's being alone at a festival or being alone on a trail run with, you know, 30 miles to go until the finish line. Until you're comfortable with just putting yourself in a situation where you don't know how it's going to turn out. You know that you might be underprepared, but you have one person to rely on, and that's yourself. Putting yourself in those situations is just the biggest thing. And so, don't limit yourself from not signing up for that pickleball tournament, or don't limit yourself for not signing up for that triathlon. If it's something that you want to try and you feel called to, attempt, just fucking go for it, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and even if you don't win or anything, you can still just have a great time,
Mm-hmm.
you know? It's not
Yep.
all about just the winning or anything like that, or if you make a fool of yourself, so what? You had a good time doing it, you had the experience. As, the
Exactly.
lethal shooter says on TikTok, he's like, "I understand it now." You're gonna understand it a little bit better, what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing,
Yep.
and know how to better prepare for next time. To know
Exactly.
where you fell short or what you didn't do or kinda thing, and, there's just opportunities. There's so many opportunities for that growth and whatnot, and it's just really important to keep trying those new things and not being afraid to
Big
try these
time.
new things.
And that's a huge aspect of what I'm doing currently, is that, like, it's not just running. I also I competed in a strongman event 2 weekends ago.
What's a strongman event?
Have you ever seen, like, on TV where the guys are like picking up the giant stones, like walking with cars on their back,
Oh, okay,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Yep. So one of those, and I competed in a field of 9 other people. So there was me in a field of 10, and I finished eighth out of 10th in my group, which isn't the result that I was hoping for. But I went out and I had a great fucking time, and I competed with everything that I got. And even though I didn't end up on the podium, I was awarded what they call the Spirit of Strength Award, which was given to me for giving the best effort of the day and having the most fun in doing it. So, again, just show up and see what happens. And, yeah, I trained for that. Yeah, I put myself kind of through the ringer, making sure that I was ready for that competition and that I wouldn't embarrass myself. But I knew that it was something that was a little bit out of my realm, and went for it anyway, and came away not victorious in the standings, but victorious in my mind and victorious in the hearts of everybody who watched. So it was an awesome thing.
I love that. I would assume you were one of the smaller guys there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was competing in the under 220-pound weight class, and I weigh
Oh, okay.
170, so I was at a pretty big disadvantage weight wise.
Yeah, you were way under the 220 threshold there.
Mm-hmm.
You had some room to grow.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
But, no, that's really cool. What kind of things do you do during a strongman? Because I'm curious. Or what kind of
Yes.
events did you do specifically?
Yeah, so there are different events in each competition, but the one that I did, the first event was what's called a yoke walk, which is essentially walking with 470 pounds on my back. So I had to walk 30 feet with 470 pounds on my back, then run back, grab a 175-pound sandbag, throw that over my shoulder, and run that down to the finish line. So that was the first event. The second event was what's called the Fingal Fingers, which are these giant 12-foot long tubes. It weighed 395 pounds. So I had to flip that up and push it over, walk it over until it fell over. So it was how many times I could do that in 60 seconds. Then the third event was a log clean and press, essentially getting, a barbell that was shaped like a log, big cylinder, getting it up to my chest and pressing it over my head. And I got up to 190 pounds on that. I failed at 210, which was the next step. Then after that, it was how many times can you deadlift 380 pounds in 60 seconds? I did that 14 times. And then the final event was a 215-pound stone that you had to pick up and put over a bar, and you were head to head against another opponent. And in practice, I had only been able to do the 215-pound stone one time, but in competition, I did it 15 times.
Wow, that's so cool. How was the recovery from that?
So the recovery from that, I host workout classes Sunday mornings, and that
Uh-huh.
competition was on Saturday. So the next morning, I went out and I, you know, did my group workout with the people that are in my group and that I'm coaching.
Mhm.
But then it was 2 days after that. So 2 days after that of resting, and then yoga on Wednesday, and then a little bit of work on Thursday, Friday, and then marathon on Sunday. So it was,
Whoa,
yeah,
a marathon a week later. That's insane. Wow.
yeah. And next week, my girlfriend and I are competing in this thing called Deca Fit, which is a high intensity interval training competition. So it's 3 straight weeks of strongman, marathon, and then high intensity interval training.
Dang. I'm sure. What kind of things? Now I'm just curious, just about you. What kind of supplements or supplementation do you do?
I mean, nothing that you can't get off the shelf. I take fish oils, I take maca and tanga ali, which are like herb supplements to help with testosterone. I take multivitamin, I take cordyceps mushrooms, yeah, and then like probiotics and stuff like that from my gut.
Very cool. No creatine, BCAAs,
But yeah,
or
yeah, creatine as well. Yeah,
okay. What's your favorite creatine? Do you do like an isolate or
yeah, it's a creatine monohydrate.
okay?
Yeah,
What's your brand? Shout it out.
honestly, my girlfriend buys it, and I just use what she has.
The one
Throw it in
I
her
I have
smoothie.
right now, I have one by Rise,
Mm-hmm.
RYSE, which is pretty good. And then I started stacking it with a BCAA
Mm-hmm.
amino from Ghost, and it's a watermelon, like the watermelon Sour Patch Kids. I'm telling
Nice.
you, that
I'm sure
stack
it's
is,
delicious.
dude, it's phenomenal. Never had anything like it. It's literally like, this is candy. This is liquid candy. I could drink
Right.
so much BCAAs that I would probably put myself in the I don't know if you could. You probably could. But yeah, wow. So I was just curious. I like to hear about other people, what they're doing, what they're supplementing, how they recover, things like that. It interests me. So what are some of your daily habits or some of your daily like mindset things to help you stay on track, to help you keep moving forward, to keep you pushing toward where you ultimately feel you're supposed to be going?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the biggest things is prioritizing sleep. When I went through my transformation with mushrooms, one of the biggest things I realized was that I was just like on my phone constantly, whether it was social media, dating apps, so on and so forth. And so just setting a predetermined bedtime for myself where I'd put the phone away and say, okay, that's done for the day, and give my mind a chance to actually shut off and relax. So getting into a regular sleep schedule was huge. And then doing little things like making my bed, making sure that laundry was clean, put away, little things like that. But then also, got into meditation. So I meditate not on a daily basis, but maybe like 3, 4 times a week for like 5 minutes, and breathing exercises. I really like 4-7-8 breathing, where you inhale for 4 seconds through the nose, hold for 7 seconds, and then exhale for 8 seconds through the mouth. And that really helps me stay regulated in times of high stress and things of that nature. So, those are really the biggest things, is just, understanding the importance of, total body maintenance, one from, a health, nutrition, sleep standpoint, but also the little things that you can do like breathing exercises and stuff like that to regulate in the moment.
That's really cool. I love that. Anything else you want to mention before we wrap this up just a little bit?
Well, just my book, Your Mindset is Your Reality, a firsthand account of the positive effects of psilocybin on mental health and addiction. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle. I'm in the middle of finishing editing the audio book right now, so hopefully that'll be complete in a little bit. So, that's the biggest thing. You can find me on Instagram at Johnny B, and I post all stuff about my fitness and, information about the psychedelics industry on there. And so I'm happy to connect with anybody.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, just a few questions here. I like to do some fun questions at the end of the podcast here. But before I get into that, I do just want to shout out today's shout out. The two shout outs I want to shout out today. Two great brands that I work with. First, the opening beat was brought to you by the Podbeat app. I've been neglecting to shout them out, but all the beats that you hear on the podcast are brought to you by the Podbeat app. John, you may love Podbeat if you haven't heard of it already. Being an ultra marathon runner, a runner, training a lot, or your people may love it. If they have a podcast that they absolutely love, like this one, maybe, who knows? And they want to listen to it during the workout, because it can be really hard to listen to a podcast during a workout unless you're a psychopath like me, where I'm like, I'll listen to a Rogan or a PBD podcast while I'm working out, no problem. Um, but what Podbeat does is you can overlay a beat onto your podcast or your audiobook to help keep it up. So like that beat that you heard at the opening of this podcast, that was the EDM beat. You can overlay that to your favorite podcast, and you can adjust it to match your cadence or the cadence that you're trying to get, beats per minute or anything like that. Really, really cool app that you can download for free and access for free the materials in there. Second app I want to shout out here that I feel is so fitting here is the Mental app. Mental is an absolute game changer for men, to where Mental is changing the mental health game for men completely. You can go to the link in the show notes. You can click my link tree there. You can go download Mental for free, try it for 7 days. In that, you'll be able to look at the AI coaching that they have, the cold shower protocol, and the different beats and music they have for focus, and much, much more in the Mental app. So definitely go and check it out. Use the code, use the link so they know I sent you. So first of a couple fun questions here, John. Very important question that I haven't asked anyone in quite some time, but I feel it's fitting for you, sir.
Hit me.
Does pineapple go on pizza?
Oh yeah, it does.
You're wrong.
Absolutely.
If you could sit down with 3 people for a dinner, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Oh, great question. I mean, I feel like I'd have to throw Joe Rogan on there. I listen to way too much of his stuff to not.
Bro,
And we'll kind of stick with the podcasting. So we'll do Joe Rogan, Andrew Huberman, and Chris Williamson.
very cool. I mean, yeah, Rogan would be one of mine. I've always said I wanted to sit down with I always want to sit down with Jackie Robinson. I've always wanted to sit down with Jackie Robinson and just have a dinner with him, pick his brain and understand what he went through. And the third person would actually be my own great great grandfather. He wrote under the name Jey Young. He was actually dubbed the dean of the Negro Leagues. He founded the Chicago Tribune sports page.
Oh wow.
And so he was very influential African American writer back in the Negro League times. And so I would love to just be able to sit down and just talk to him. That's why I go by Jay, is to kind of honor my great great grandfather there. And then third here, let me think. You did the pizza, did 3 people. What is your guilty pleasure food and song?
Ooh, guilty pleasure food, cheesesteaks, man. I'm from the Philly area, and there's nothing like a good cheesesteak. There's this
I've
place
had
that
nothing better than a Philly cheesesteak from Philadelphia.
absolutely. Yeah, man. There's this place that opened up down the street from me, actually, and the owners are from Philadelphia. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, but the owners are from Philadelphia, and they make the best cheesesteak that I've maybe ever had, including from Philly. So, shout out to the Violet Stone in St. Pete.
Hey,
You guys are killing
Violet
it.
Stone. Not a
Yep.
sponsor. How about a guilty pleasure song that you're like, I'm gonna sneak this one into my workout playlist today?
I don't know if there would be something that exactly qualifies as that. I have a musical taste that's just so all over the place that there's a wide range of stuff that I listen to, from EDM to rock to, you know, whatever you name it, and I can pick out a song from that genre.
I feel like as millennials, that's every single millennial's answer to that question. Is that it's so broad, it's so wide that it really just depends on the moment. It's a moment by moment kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited for at work this week. This week that we're recording I run our group, our kids group, our group therapy
hmm
program. At work, and for the teen group, they're actually going to be making music. Their title of their lesson is Music for Moods. So they're just going to be creating playlists together for different moods. And the instructors are psyched about it. I hope the kids are psyched about it and that they just have so much fun doing it.
That's beautiful, man.
I'm
That's
also
got to be
really
so
worried
rewarding.
because those teens there's something else, but I'm sure it'll be great. Well, John, your journey is incredible. You had me curious. You had me all into your story the whole time, and the way you turn your life around, nothing short of inspiring. And then huge shout out to your brother too. His story also incredible. So your guys' story hand in hand. I would love to do this again sometime with you and your brother, just to get you both on at the same time and compare both your stories. I think that would be so fun. I don't know if you guys have ever done a co-podcast together, but I think that would be so fun for you guys to do, or start your own podcast together. You guys would do great, I'm sure. But regardless, your message is a powerful reminder that change is possible. Maybe you need a little psilocybin in there, but we don't have to stay stuck in destructive cycles. It's possible to break out of them. To our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, check out John's book. Like you mentioned, Your Mindset is Your Reality, available on Amazon and Kindle. You'll be able to find that in the show notes. I'll link it there. If you're looking to push yourself beyond what you think is possible, whether physically, mentally, or emotionally, John is someone you'll want to follow, so go over and follow him on Instagram. You mentioned that was Johnny Boy, right?
Johnny B.
Johnny B, yes. And he'll, of course, be tagged on all the products, or not products, all the posts that come out about the podcast when it comes out. And yeah, everyone, thank you guys for tuning in to the Young Dad Podcast. If this episode inspired you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and remember your mindset and everything. And also head over to the website, click the resources tab, and be able to download a free interactive activity guide for you guys to do at home with your kids based on this episode. And until next time, stay present, stay engaged, and keep growing.